Hello, I'm Reed Kohberger. My child Pauli Kohberger and I would like to present a video for you on how to create a successful blog, how to write for and create a successful blog. We have a slideshow that's going to come up pretty soon, but just a little bit of background. The blog that I own is the Pit POV, and it's pretty darn successful, and we're going to show you what you have to do or what you should do going into creating your first blog and writing for it. So, without further ado, Pauli's here.
Hello.
And please enjoy the slideshow and my commentary. Thanks a lot, guys. Hey, as I said, I'm Reed Kohberger. Let me give you a little bit of background about why I feel like I can write this and do this video for you guys. I've had a blog that I started back in 2016. It's done very well. It has a very narrow focus. As you can see, it's called the Pit POV. We're keeping our eyes on Pitt football. So it's the University of Pittsburgh's football team and athletic programs. Like I said, it's very narrow, niche type of subject. But even with that, we have had almost 850,000 readers over the years. So, in each year actually. So it's been pretty successful, and what I'd like to do is I'd like to go over my experiences, my ups and downs, and my rights and wrongs on how I did this. And then we'll go through a series of slides, and I'll talk about that each time. Okay, here we go.
And I'd also like to mention that I, Pauli Kohberger, will be assisting my father, Reed. So if you hear a second voice talking, that might be me.
Okay, next slide. Okay, here we go. First of all, let me show you the front page of the blog that I have. This is as of last week. So you can see that we have a banner as a header. It says Pit POV. Those are supposed to be panther eyes because we're Pit Panther. So those are the eyes of the panther. And you can see on the left side going down, that's basically how I am describing to the readers what this blog is and what kind of blog we want it to be, and also some of the rules that we have. I'll talk about that later. Those are very, very important. On the right side, you can see the headlines 2021 production loss. A friend of ours who started out as a reader and is now a really good writer for the blog, that's an article that he posted up about one of Pitt's opponents in this upcoming season. Okay, next please. All right, what is a blog? A blog is short for weblog. I think most people know that. But it can be anything you want it to be. From an online diary, as we say here, personal reflections, commentary, and sports, whatever it is. Any interest that you have, that you feel like you're as much of a subject matter expert, and you don't have to be expert, but it's near and dear to you, then you can use that as a subject for starting your blog, because that's what you want to get across to not only the people that you know, but once you start this blog, it is going to be nationwide and might even be worldwide. It's amazing how fast that happens. It could be any of your interests, what we say. Now, I went to the University of Pittsburgh, so back in the 1970s. I'm an older guy. And because I went to almost every football game, and I just happened to love Pitt football. Now, I was in the Coast Guard for 33 years, so I didn't live really in continental United States for a long part of that time. But once I moved back to the East Coast, I got back into the swing of things with Pitt football, and that's when I started writing for another blog, the one that preceded the one I have here. Someone else owned it, and I was a commenter. I'll talk about this, how commenters become writers. So I was writing kind of long comments, and the owner of the blog said, Reed, if you're going to write this much, why don't you just make it an article? So back in 2010, that's what I started to do. I started to write all his football articles. All right. Why should you start a blog? Well, first off, you have to have somewhat of an ego, because you're going to present yourself to the world. Okay? And you're going to highlight specific issues while you're doing that. Now, when I say present yourself to the world, I mean it quite literally, because, and I'm going to keep referring back to the Pit POV blog because that's what I live with. When I started the POV, I didn't think it was going to be that successful, that big. Now, we started off with a lot of readers. I'm almost sure they're all Pitt alumni, or they're, people that lived in Pittsburgh that, follow football. So they, have the Steelers, and then you have the Pitt Panthers. But it is amazing, when I started looking at the statistics of the blog, I started in 2016. In the beginning of 2017, I started to notice that it wasn't just the United States. It was a lot of countries in Europe, even in the Middle East, and a couple even in Africa. It's all over the place. Some in Asia also. Now, I think those are Pitt alumni that work in those places. They might be military. But it is going to be all over the place. So you have to kind of brace yourself for that. Now, what interest do you want to share with others? Now, I don't know what's in your mind, but again, you heard from me, it was University of Pittsburgh football. But it can be anything, flower arranging, it could be about politics, it could be about the history of the city you live in, it can be anything you want it to be. But whatever you're going to do, make sure that when you put that subject stuff in the blog and you write your articles in the blog, be prepared that you're going to get some real feedback. And when I mean real, it's going to be both positive and negative feedback from the readers who turn into commenters. Now, on our blog, we have tons and tons of readership, but I think we probably only have maybe 150 at the most people that want to comment on each article. So when those comments go up, you're going to read them, and sometimes you're not going to be super
enthused.
Yeah, super enthused with that. Now, if you want to just present, there's also emotional satisfaction, as you see on the screen here, and financial compensation. But those are two really big issues that I'd like to talk about later on. But going back to this top two issues. So if you just want to throw that out and not get any feedback whatsoever, then you can make it so there's no comments on your blog. But I think if you do that, you're really shortchanging yourself, because the real joy of having a blog is meeting all these new people, even if you don't meet them in person, but maybe you will later on. But even if you don't meet them in person, you're going to get to know a lot of different people in your life. And you're going to start up certain dialogues with that. And then those commenters are going to talk to each other through their comments. And then I'll talk about later about how the Pitt POV has become really much more than just a blog. Okay, so really, make sure that you understand that you're going to get feedback on the things that you put up. So that's going to turn back into emotional satisfaction. Providing information, I'm going to read this, connective outlets can provide an emotional boost to all involved, the contributors, or the writers, the readers, and the commenters. Now, some bloggers will just post a piece, and when I say the word piece, I mean it's an article, a graphic, or something like that, but basically it's a piece or an article. You'll post that up, and then if you don't, like I said, if you don't care to engage in the readers, when you have set your blog up, all the technical aspects of your blog up, you can say, I don't want to have any comments on it. Again, like I said, you're shortchanging yourself. Now I'm assuming you're going to have commenters, because that's really kind of why you want to do this. Now, it's really hard for the owner of a blog and the writer of a blog to stay behind the screen. I used an example the other night of The Wizard of Oz. If you remember, in the latter part of the movie, The Wizard of Oz is found out by the lion and the Tin Man and everything, and he's waving a curtain back in front of him. He says, pay no attention to the man behind the screen. Pay no attention. Well, you're going to be the man or the woman behind the screen. And you're going to have to know that people are going to pay attention to you. You can't really just hide if you do this. Now, I use my name. I use my real name, and a lot of my writers use their real names also. But if you wanted to, you could have, like anyone else does online, you can have an online name, or you can even remain anonymous. But again, I felt like, since I'm putting myself out there, I want people to know that it's Reed Kohberger they're interacting with. So if you remember that why you started this blog, then you're going to think about how much you want to engage with everyone. Again, thick skin, please, when you first start out especially. Now, do you want a freestyle blog where you can just put up an article and then people can comment any way they want? And believe me, if you don't put some parameters onto them, they're going to comment and they're going to say some things that you really don't want your name associated with. So if you remember back to the front page of the blog I did, you can see there that on the left side of the screen, I say this blog follows University of Pittsburgh is intended to generate civil and detailed discussions. There are a few guidelines on this blog, but there are 3 standing rules. Now, like I said, I have 3 standing rules that I will not bend, and that is no sex talk on there, no politics, unless you're doing a political blog. I felt, of course, I started this 2016, and it's run the whole time, so there's been a lot of political discourse other places, and no crude swearing. And when I say crude, I mean not just this pisses me off or that damn quarterback or whatever it is, but I mean the really crude stuff that you know.
And no religion as well.
And no religion as well. So my blog isn't about politics, sex, or religion. So I have limited what they say. And those are the boundaries. And believe me, if you put boundaries on there, it's going to be a much more positive experience for everyone involved. And I'll talk a little bit more about how to actually put those boundaries in. Now we got a financial compensation. I don't get any money back for doing this, although I started to in the very beginning of the blog, and I'll talk about that. But this is, I think, the most important decision you're going to make after, am I going to start a blog or am I not going to start a blog? And I'll tell you why. Because once you decide to accept financial compensation for it, it's going to turn into a job. And you can see I say warning, we say warning, do not quit your day job. Believe me, you're not going to make money from your blog, at least for the first year or so. And I don't know anyone that I know that has actually made enough money where they could quit a job. But the real important thing, I highlighted this in red, do you want this to be a job or do you want it to be a hobby? So if it's a job, it might not be that fun to do. If it's a hobby, you're going to have fun doing it because then you're not beholden to anybody on how much time and effort you put into this. So that kicks into financial compensation. There's a bunch of different ways to have it. One is, do you want your blog to be free to readers? That is, you put things up, they log on and click on your POV or whatever your blog address is, and then they read it, and then they comment it. It's free to everyone. Now, what you can do, if you think that'll work, you can make it a subscription service, which means you will have people that have to basically send you an email or something, some sort of message saying, yes, I'd be willing to pay $5 a month, or whatever it is, to be able to partake in this blog, which means not just reading it, but being able to comment on, well, reading it also, it does mean reading it, and commenting and all the other things that are a lot of fun. But I think if you do that, you're going to find that readership is going to drop drastically. I know 1 or 2 people that started it with a subscription service, and they only had a couple hundred readers, and then they took that subscription service off, and all of a sudden now they have thousands and thousands of readers. So it really does hamper how big and I think how good your blog can be. Now, secondly, do you want to run ads or do you want to sell merchandise on there? I actually tried, beginning of my second year, so 2017, the beginning of 2017, I said, look, I can put some advertisements up. Although I was hesitant, but I said, I'll put some advertisements up. And basically, I use this thing called Google Advertisements. I don't know if they're still around or not because I don't use it. But what it does, when your advertisers, you're going to go through a company that will talk or somehow talk to advertisers and put advertisements on the page of your blog that's up on the screen. Well, they use a formula. Like I said, we had tons and tons of readers, but because the subject matter was so narrow, I was having the advertisements, and they do kind of take up a lot of space, and they draw the eye away from you, what you want the readers to read. And I wasn't making much money. I think I made, in the first couple months, I made like $65 or $70 a month. So I called up customer service at Google Advertising. And I said, I don't understand this. I have 850,000 readers, and from everything I read on the internet, I should be making a nice penny on the advertisements. And we talked for like 10 minutes, and the guy explained to me there's a formula that you take the readership, you take the geographic issues into it, and then you take the subject matter. Well, my subject matter the advertisers, or the formula, I guess, didn't think that it was going to be so widespread that the really heavy-duty advertisers would want to be on there. So, again, I think you can figure that out. If you start your blog, you can call them up and talk to them or whatever it is before you decide to do that. Like I said, I was hesitant to do that in the first place because I didn't want anything cluttering up between myself and the readers. Now, to sell merchandise, you can do that. That's your decision later on. I can tell you, though, that once my blog got really popular, I made up a bunch of t-shirts and I made up a bunch of magnets and I sent them out to the readers free. Just because luckily I'm retired, had enough couple bucks to do that. But if you're I don't know anything about selling merchandise, you can figure that out on your own. Now, do you want to take donations via Patreon, Ko-Fi, or any of those donation sites? Again, I did that for one time because I live in Maryland. So to go to the Pitt football, and by the way, I didn't mention I have a media pass. Pitt gave me a media pass to go up and go to the game, sit up in the press box, go to the practices and everything, and then write articles because I had so many readers. They said, hey, we want you to actually understand what's going on here so you can, represent everything truthfully. And I took them up on that. Now, I was traveling up to Maryland, up and down for almost every other week or whatever it is, 500 miles. So I needed gas money. I stayed in a hotel. I needed hotel money. I had to eat. I needed per diem for food. And, whatever else it was. So I just asked the guys, they said, hey, look, I'm going to throw up a donation site here. If you don't want to donate, don't think about it. If you do, I could use a few bucks. And I got like $1,500. It offset my costs. But that was the last time I did it. I just didn't feel that it started to feel more like a job then because I was accepting things from those people instead of just verbal, conversations and stuff like that. So I stopped about it. I stopped. And you're going to make less than you think, even in donations or in advertisements. Now, to make your blog attractive to other people, you're going to choose a subject for it. Again, you probably have this in mind before you even are listening to this or going to start a blog. So, many types of blog. But let me tell you, the subject that you choose, you're going to have to be either love the subject as much as you can because you're going to write about it, so you're not going to write about something you don't care about. You're going to love the subject, or if you don't really love the subject, you must be a subject matter expert on it. That means that you have so much knowledge about something that you want to share it with other people regardless of whether you really like it or not. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but I think you'll understand if you start this. So, it can be family, you can write about fun, historical stuff, educational, personal. Creative writing is a great thing. I mean, look, you're going to be writing a lot. So you're going to be doing creative writing, and you'll be surprised how much your writing affects other people. And then marketing, again, for money and stuff like that. So choose a subject you're passionate about, or that you have your unique viewpoint on. If you have that, then you're going to have a successful blog. Now, you are doing this, and you're going to subject yourselves to scrutiny, praise, criticism, hopefully constructive criticism, but sometimes it won't be. And you'll be challenged by your readers. What you'll do is, if you do a normal type of blog where there's interaction between they read the article, your readers read the article, and then they turn into commenters. And sometimes they'll comment 4, 5, or 6, or 10 different times on the same article because all of a sudden your commenters are having conversations between themselves. It's kind of wonderful to watch it happen. But sometimes they're going to turn back to you and say, I don't believe that you know this, or I don't believe that you saw this, or whatever it is. And you're going to have to take an even keel and say, okay, I'm going to respond to that, and I'm going to tell them how I came about what I said. Like I said, I had a media pass, so whenever I talked about the insider stuff about Pitt football, these guys understood that I was actually seeing that for myself. So I think that if I didn't actually know for sure that something was true that I was putting up on my blog, I was writing the articles about, I would always say, well, I believe this is, or it appears to be, so that you can say it's opinionative, or you weren't actually sure, or you're paraphrasing. But if you know something and you put it up there and someone comes back to you saying, well, no, here's how I know it. I actually went to this concert and I listened to them and I saw what they were doing up on stage. It wasn't just like I read the newspaper afterwards. So have a subject, and this is important, have a subject that there can be dissenting opinions on, because again, that's what makes it interesting. It's the conversation and the people you'll meet. Now, how to write for your audience. You probably will know in advance pretty much what who your audience is going to be, and what kind of audience do you want to reach. Now, again, are you educating others? Are you learning from others, marketing to others? Whatever it is, you're going to have to know people that are already going to be interested in it as soon as you put the blog up. And before you put the blog up, you're going to kind of spread the word, either through Facebook or whatever social media. I'm not a social media expert, but I know there's a million ways to get something out there and to get people to see it. And you're going to do that even before you put the blog up online in its existence. So, what level of familiarity do you want to have with your readers? And I know I wanted to have the one-on-one, if possible, interactions, because I like people. I like making new friends, and I like conversing with people. So for me, I wanted them to know it was Reed Kohberger doing it, so I used my real name, and I put my email up there, so if they wanted to talk or they wanted to ask me something off the blog, offline, they could do that. So it's very personal. It gets to be very personal. Now, let me tell you something about the POV. It started as a blog. And within a year, some of the readers and the commenters liked each other so much they said, why don't we all tailgate together before the football games? And they actually made up flags, big flags with 20-foot flagpoles with the POV logo on it, so that people would know where the pit POV guys were, and they could meet each other and drink beer or whatever before the game and eat food. And so that became like a family almost. In a lot of ways, you'll find that these readers and commenters, they actually get to know each other and have friendships with each other. And then in turn, of course, they have friendships with you. But so that leads into what kind of discussions do you want to have with your readers and commenters? Do you want to be the subject matter expert and just throw stuff out there, whatever it is, technical stuff, whatever it is, and just say, okay, here it is, read it, and that's it? Or do you want those discussions to be like you're in a living room, sitting around with a bunch of guys, or, people, I should say, and you're talking about something. And so you say something, Joe over there says something, Marcia over there says something, and you're kind of, you're all interacting with each other verbally. Well, that's what's going to happen. If you want it to, it's going to happen on your blog. And I suggest, for me again, personally speaking, that's the best thing about having a blog and writing for a blog, is that you are actually in these conversations with people that you never knew up front, that you got to learn about, and then all of a sudden your friendships and you're talking. It's a wonderful thing. But if you don't want that personal give and take, again, you're going to have to somehow remove yourself from that. And like I said, one way is to just not let people comment. But I really don't suggest that. I think it takes all the fun out of it. Okay, so maintaining your blog. Once you get the blog up and running, and again, see, we're talking here about the aspects of writing, creating, and writing a blog, not the technical stuff. The technical stuff, by the way, I'll just interject this really easy. WordPress has a really great tutorial. It's very easy to do. They didn't have that when I was starting my blog, but now they do. So once you got all the thoughts and all the things in line and all your eggs in one basket, then you can go to WordPress and they'll teach you how to put up your blog. You could probably do it in an hour or two, I think. Anyway, so maintaining your blog. Is your blog reactive, reacting to issues that happen, or is your blog proactive, which means you're posting up original content and people are responding to that? Now, again, using my blog as an example because it's about a football team, it's on the off season, so the football goes September to January, right? So on the off season, because I have Media Pass, I would go up to Pittsburgh, I'd go to their practices, I'd go to their media days, I'd go to their alumni stuff, the alumni dinners where the football players would be there and the coach would be there talking. So I was being proactive with my articles. I would see what was happening, my conversations, learning stuff, and I would be proactive putting up original content so that they can enjoy, the readers can enjoy it, and the commenters can enjoy it. Now, if you're reactive, that kicks in after the games are played. Now that you're proactive until the games are starting to be played, the games are played, or your concert's done, or your movies, or someone's made a movie you like, or someone's put out a new novel that you like. Now you're going to be reactive because you're reacting to something that's already happened. I don't know if it's a huge distinction, but you have to understand that there's going to be two different types of work you do with this. Now, what is a reasonable, consistent schedule for you? Let me tell you right now, don't burn out on it. And you'll be so excited about it, and you'll have so much energy about it in the very beginning that you're going to think, I have to do something every day, or I have to do 3 times a week. You don't have to do anything except for what you want to do and what makes you comfortable to do it. I have to tell you that I started my blog in 2016, and in mid-2018, I wasn't getting tired of it. I was getting a little bit burned out with it. And I was doing so much other I'm retired military, so I was doing so much other volunteer stuff that I felt my blog was getting in the way of the other things I was doing to try to reach out and help people. So what I did is I went ahead and invited others to help administer. Now you see 2 people up here. The one is a Southern California Gamecocks fan. His name's Rich. And that's what the Pitt Cox fans, that's his screen name, right? You can see I have my real name down there. And then Michelangelo Monteleone, Mike, I asked him who wants to take over the editorship of the blog, and he said he did, and that was wonderful. He's been great at it. So I still read, I still throw up articles every once in a while, and I still go to comments, but it's not like I'm doing everything on my own. I've kind of put that aside, let other people run it, and I have my other stuff to do. But it is still my blog. And if I see something on there that I don't want my name attached to, I will come down rather heavy. But Mike has been wonderful, and so has Rich, been wonderful about maintaining awareness of what's being said in the comments. Now, this is interesting because I talked to you about readers, I talked about commenters. Now here's what happens. You have readers, hold on a second please, I'm going to switch here. Yeah, next slide, thanks. Here we go. On the left side, I'm going to talk about that in a second, but in the right side, that's an article that I just talked about, this guy Rich Pitcox from South Carolina. He was a reader first, then he was a commenter, and he still reads the comments. But now he's become a writer, and look at that. That's probably 1/5 of that article. And he puts up one of those for every opponent that Pitt is going to play in the next season. So what happens sometimes is you get readers that a lot of readers, I would say a large amount of readers, comment at least once, but then a few of them start commenting a lot. Like I said, I think we have 150, 200 commenters all the time. And sometimes their comments, as I told you about when I was working for the other, when I wasn't working, I was writing for the other blog, the guy that owned that blog said, Reed, your comments are so good and so long, why don't you try doing articles? So I took that from that other blog and I brought it over to my blog. So now, when I see these comments that are like 1,000, 750, 1,200, 1,200 words long, I would say, man, this should have been an article. So I'd get in touch with the guy. I'd say, look, you're a good writer. And this comment shows that you really care about what you're writing, what you're sharing with other people. I said, why don't you just send me an article? Write something, send it to me. I'll proofread it. I'll put graphics in it or whatever. And then we'll post it up and see what happens. And every single time I've done that, every time, they've gotten rave reviews from the other readers. So they've gone from reader to commenter to writer. And when you get that happening, it takes a lot off your back. You have to trust the guy that he's going to still stay within the parameters that you want your blog to be. And you'll be surprised. Another thing I did, this is just on an offhand, is that I wanted other people to write because people just underestimate how good they can write. So what I did is I posted up an article and said, why don't you send me your thoughts about what it was like to be at the University of Pittsburgh when you attended it? And what was it like being in the city of Pittsburgh? What was it like watching the football? Tell me exactly. Write a little bit about exactly how you look back over your time at Pitt. And I got 45 articles out of that. And after I didn't post all 45, I probably posted 10 or 15 that were really, really well written. And, you know, it took me some time to proofreading, but proofreading is a lot faster than writing yourself. Anyway, that's how you can get other people to chip in and help. And believe me, they'll be glad to do it because they're proud of what they do. Okay. So, how to build up that blog for your future. How large of an audience are you comfortable with? How success is defined in the blog world, statistics, etc. When to retire a blog or keep it running. Here's the big question. You are going, if your blog gets off on a good start and starts becoming popular, you'll be surprised at how widespread your name and your thoughts in your writing are going to be. Now, what I found, and I talked to other bloggers that have found the same thing, one day I was just looking through online stuff, some sports stuff and everything, and all of a sudden I see a couple paragraphs taken directly out of one of my articles on the Pitt POV. I'm not going to say what magazine had it, but they basically took it without attribution. I didn't really care. But what I do is whenever I'm writing and I see something in another venue, like another newspaper or a news item somewhere, whatever it is, I will cut and paste that information. And I will put it in the blog, I will indent it, I will italicize it, put it in quotes, and then I will attribute it. That means I will put a link at the bottom of that. I'll say, here's what I found on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that you might be interested if you haven't seen it yet. I'll put that little copy what I did, a couple paragraphs or whatever it was, and then I'll put a link to it. And believe me, no one will ever, those businesses will not complain because every person that clicks on that link you have in your blog is a potential buyer of advertising they have on their site. So in all the times I've been doing this, I've never once had anyone come back to me. Well, one time I'll tell you that in a second. But I've never had anyone come back to me and saying, why are you putting our stuff in your blog? Matter of fact, I talked to two of the Post-Gazette writers one day a couple of years ago, and they said, are you kidding me? We love that stuff. You know, first of all, you're telling people to read our articles, and secondly, the business is making money off of you. I said, okay, that's fine. One time, though, I did put up graphics. I put up a photograph, and I did it all the time. I put up a photograph, and I didn't attribute it. I didn't say who was a photographer, and I didn't ask for permission. And about 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from a guy saying he's the photographer's lawyer. And I said, yeah, you know, and he goes, well, you used it without permission. I said, okay. And he goes, that'll be $300. And I said, okay, well, you wait for the check. He never called back, and I never sent him any money. I'm not even sure that he was actually the lawyer. But the thing is, in this day and age, you probably should make sure that if something is not original by you, make sure your readers know basically where you got that stuff from. And there's nothing wrong with cutting and pasting and getting stuff from other people because it expands the writing. It adds gravitas and it adds truth to the writings that you're doing. So, do you decide to retire your blog or not? I told you about how I got kind of a little bit burnt out on it. I already talked to you about that. So, you're going to have a decision to make. One of my friends had a blog, but then all of a sudden, his wife had a couple kids. And he said, you know, I can't do this any longer. And he didn't really have anyone to ask, could you keep it running for me? So he made a decision. My family's more important than the time I'm spending on the blog. So he closed the blog off. He didn't have any problem with it, but that's what you kind of have to think about sometimes. Okay, let's look at the traffic that you might kick in, you might have when you put your blog up. You can see there I started in June of 2016, and you can see the bar graph, and then on the right side of that bar graph, it's a little bit not so bright, but you can see it goes from 900, 450,000, those are visitors, to zero. So started in 2016, 2017, the full season, it was really good. 2018, it was really good. After the season is when I asked the other guy, Mike, to take over. And then still 2019, 20, 21, those are wonderful numbers. And it's hugely surprising to me at first. I didn't even realize how to look at the statistics in 2016. And then once I did in 2017, I said, holy hell, we have like 750,000 readers. But that's interesting. Now, on the right side, so I'm not saying your blog's going to be that big. There's blogs that have millions and millions and millions of readers. But, and this is, like I said, a very narrow subject, but there's a lot of people that want to look in on what you're doing. They want to see what you're doing and hear about what you're doing. So on the right side of this slide, you see the all-time posts. Let's say 2016 to 22, that's let's say almost 6 full years, we've had 1,478 posts. That's articles. That's a lot. That's an awful lot. We had 212,500 comments on those posts. And I'm telling you, that is a ton. Look how many views we had, 3,870,000. And visitors, 385,000. That's what people click on and click off. So you can see that it got pretty successful, but I put a lot of work into it in the beginning. 1,478 articles. This is a little aside here. After 2017, I said, well, I want to, when you write an article, WordPress tells you how many words it is, right? So I went back through all the 2017 articles I wrote, and I tallied up all the words that I had written. And then I looked up what is the length of an average fiction novel. And it turns out it was the equivalent of almost 9 novels I wrote in articles. You don't have to do that. Yeah, I was really into it, and I didn't even know I was writing that much, to be honest. But there's a lot of stuff out there, and your name's going to be all over it. Okay. This is important. Remember I told you about the stuff that I have up on the front page on that left side. It was no swearing, no religion, no politics. And so there's ways to moderate. Now, what I say, it's not just your readers. It's really a community of readers and yourself. So the types of moderation, who's going to be doing that? You could pay someone to do it. I didn't want to do that. I did it myself at first, and I had some volunteers that would look at these things. But what WordPress will do is you'll put certain parameters, and on the right side of this screen you can see automatic close comments. Now, to limit your readership or commenting, comment author must be filled out, name and email. They would send that to you, and you would allow them to comment. Users must be registered and logged in to comment. You can make those each active. I decided not to. I didn't want to limit anybody on my blog. But I wanted to make sure that once they were on there, they knew what they had to, they knew the rules that they had to post by and comment by. So those are the technical stuff. They, older than 14 days, the comment gets closed and stuff like that. Now, in the very bottom, you can see that there's Juggernaut, there's some IPs, Let's Go Brandon, Juggernaut is an online name, Let's Go Brandon was an online name, Titleman, Eats Dog Doo-Doo, that's terrible, but anyway, I have about 30 of those. What that is when I saw comments in WordPress, you put words in that WordPress will hold back a comment if those words are in there. And they'll need approval. So every day I was looking at the comments, I was saying, okay, this is fine, I approve it, I disapprove it, I approve it, I approve it, I approve it. When guys were so bad and they were disregarding the rules so much, WordPress has another way of doing that. You put there, it's either a name, like an online name like Juggernaut, it's an IP like the one underneath that, or it's an email address. If you put those in, automatically anything from those people will be flagged and be held for moderation automatically. Now, saying this, I will tell you that, hold on one second. I will tell you that I only had to ban one person. Well, I had to ban 2 people. One was like for a week or so just to calm them down a little bit. But I had almost emails for a lot of the commenters, so I could reach out to them kind of outside of the blog and say, look, you need to slow down on this. Now, the guy that I banned, he never broke any of those rules. This is very interesting. What he did was every single time another commenter put something up, he would jump and he would either refute it. He wasn't mean. He wasn't always negative either, but it was always him. Every single comment. So you would have like 40 comments and maybe 5 people doing the comments, and then, but this guy's name was Tex. He would do, oh, I shouldn't have said that. He would do it every comment, and he did this for months. And finally, the other readers were and commenters were sending me emails and saying, look, you have to do something about this guy. He's made it so it's not even fun any longer. And listen, you have a blog that's not fun. If you're not doing it for money and the blog's not fun for everyone, then you got to really kind of reassess what you're going to do. So I banned him for 2 weeks at first. I called him first. I said, exactly, this is it. You can't do this for 2 weeks. I'm going to make sure you can't do it. And he said, I won't do it. I won't do it. And then when he came back on, he started doing it again. Maybe not as badly, but what he ended up doing was starting his own blog, so it was perfect. So now he can talk as much as he wants about things. Okay. So, technical stuff. I talked a little bit about this. We have a handout, actually. You're going to see my email at the end of this. If you want a handout on the technical stuff, you can email me. But WordPress offers a free blog hosting site, so you don't have to even buy a domain name, which is not expensive anyway. But your blog address would be in something.wordpress.com. So, you could buy a hosting service. Lithium, I think, is what I use. It's $4 a month or whatever it is. And there's a lot of trial and error about adjusting your blog to how you want it to be, even after it's started. But go for the tutorial by WordPress to get it up there, and then once you start blogging, and you'll even have some feedback about how your blog's presented from readers, and take their advice if it's good advice. It might be that you have too much stuff together, you're putting too much graphics in, whatever it is. Remember that you're going to get a lot of positive feedback from your readers. Okay. Again, WordPress's site, on this slide, they have a tutorial, a checklist for starting a new blog. I suggest you use it. I mean, I know there's other platforms for blogs. You can use any one you want. I'm sure the other ones also have the same type of thing. But I know for a fact that some of the people that I know that wanted to start their own blog, they used this and they were up and going in less than a day. So it's a really good way to do it. I don't think you have to, it's free. You don't have to fill, I believe it's free, right?
It can be.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the way to do it. I hope you got something out of that, because I know a lot of people say, I want to start a blog, and they have no idea what they're going to do. What happens is they start a blog, they put their stuff, their thoughts out via their writings, and they start getting negative feedback. Not really negative, but they start getting feedback like, well, how do you know this? Why do you say this, stuff like that? So they weren't prepared. What they wanted to hear was it was wonderful, great, everything was great, but that's kind of unrealistic. You're going to have regular, real, reality-based feedback, so please understand that going in. And if you do understand that going in and you learn how to adapt to that and how to answer people's questions, you're going to have a lot of fun doing it. I'm telling you, it's a big part of my life even still, but I am so happy that I started this. The readers, not only do they do tailgates, they have golf tournaments, POV golf tournaments. They go to each other's weddings. They have dinner. These are all friends that they never had before. And now hundreds and hundreds of people do exactly the same thing, and they all do it through the blog itself. And I hope that happens with you and your blog, because it makes you feel wonderful. And all of a sudden you have other things to do too. Anyway, if you need additional information or handouts, there's we did on the lecture Thursday, we handed out some stuff. But there are our two emails. I've asked you to, if you are serious about it, send me an email. If you want to bitch about something, then I don't really care. But if you want to do a blog and you got something from this, or you need some extra information, send me a thing, and I will send this. I can send this program, the slide program, out to you, and we can send the technical issues document we have too. And look, thank you for listening. Thanks for your time, and good luck with your blog. You're going to have a great time if you understand what it is and why you're doing it. All right, Reed out. Thanks.
Pauli out. Thank you for your time.